I'm Paul Tarantino. I'm the founder and CEO of ConsentEye. I would say it's definitely a help in the sense that there is a new law which comes into force on the 25th of May, as we all know, the General Data Protection Regulation. So I'd say it's a help in the sense that companies need to abide by that, clearly, or organizations need to abide by that, but equally, it's great for data subjects, in the EU to have the peace of mind to know that their information is being safeguarded and processed in accordance to this new data privacy regulation, which I think is, very long in coming, given the plethora of ways in which our information or our personal information is harvested. If an organisation fails to comply with the General Data Protection Regulation, there's been a lot of talk about these onerous fines, 4% of the annual revenue or annual global turnover, or 20 million euros, whichever the greater. Personally, I think it's said that there's a lot of issues around loss of reputation, brand damage, but I think the biggest issue companies or organizations will face is actually their customers or individuals actually filing class action lawsuits against organizations when they are become familiar or aware of their rights as EU citizens. But equally, if they find out that companies or organizations are misusing or misrepresenting their personal information, they have every right, as we've seen now with the Facebook and Cambridge Analytica situation, where I don't believe Facebook have been fined yet, but we have seen a lot of class action lawsuits filed by some of their customers. Now, if 87.5 million customers file a lawsuit against an organization, I would imagine that's going to be quite damaging, and certainly a lot more so than even 4% of their global revenue. The first one is, I believe organizations have to embrace this new era in data privacy. We are moving into uncharted waters. I don't think anyone really knows, other than by the definition of GDPR, what to expect. But I think we are there's no question that we're entering into a new era of data privacy. The other one would be really understand how to be more transparent, across your organization, with your data subjects, whatever they may be, or however you may communicate with them or provide services, with those individuals. Just be more truthful and more transparent with how you're processing their private information. And then, for me, the third one would be, given where we're at now, almost a month away from GDPR Day, would be to have a fire practice. What does that mean? Well, someone make a subject access request internally. What does that process look like? Where does it fall down? Do you have a data breach on a Friday afternoon? What happens if you have only 72 hours from a Friday to report a data breach? Run through those scenarios for real to see where those gaps may fall. And equally, be very clear around which legal basis you would need to process people's individual information. ConsentEye it's an open API. It's a cloud-based application subscription on a subscription service that will allow organizations to quite simply create a consent agreement. It'll allow them to request consent from an individual by emailing it in a link to individuals who can then respond to that agreement. ConsentEye will then enable you to record that data, or record the consent that comes back, but ultimately manage it. So what we envisage is a lot of complexity around companies that rely on consent as a legal basis, in the sense that there'll be multiple versions of consent, different types of consent, and consent that lasts maybe 2 years, it might last 6 months, it may be different time restrictions on that level of consent. And how do you manage that from a single place? So ConsentEye quite simply provides a dashboard as well for a data protection officer to have a single source of truth around consent, so that in the event that they need to communicate with certain data subjects or individuals, they can extract those individuals that have given consent and disregard those that haven't, to ensure that they communicate with only the appropriate consenting individuals and therefore comply with GDPR.